Multiple waves of Arctic air are about to slam into the United States. And what's developing right now is not just one winter storm, but a catastrophic pattern shift that will transform the entire eastern half of America into a deep freeze for weeks, beginning with the most dangerous post-Christmas travel conditions we've seen in years. I'm not talking about one snow event or a simple cold snap. I'm talking about back-to-back-to-back blasts of frigid temperatures, devastating ice accumulations, and heavy snow that will shut down power grids across multiple states, strand millions of travelers, and mark the beginning of a sustained Arctic pattern that changes everything. At the 2-minute 45-second mark, I'm going to reveal the exact dates when each Arctic wave hits with hour-by-hour timeline details. And by minute 5, you'll know the 3 metropolitan areas where this winter pattern creates the most life-threatening conditions, including which major cities face up to half an inch of catastrophic ice accumulation. By minute 8, I'll show you the computer model data that has meteorologists increasingly concerned while multiple forecast runs keep trending worse, and exactly what you need to do to protect yourself and your family, not just for this weekend, but for the sustained Arctic blast that will dominate our weather through mid-January. I promise you this information could save your life during what's about to become the most dangerous winter period in recent memory. And as Scripture tells us in Proverbs 22 verse 3, the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it. This is your warning to prepare wisely. Here's a number that should get your immediate attention. Half an inch of ice is forecast to accumulate across western Pennsylvania today, Friday, December 26th. And that's just the beginning of a multi-week pattern that will bring repeated winter storms, dangerous cold, and sustained threats to life and property. Now, you might be thinking half an inch doesn't sound like much. But let me tell you something that will completely change your perspective on ice storms. 1/10 of an inch of ice is enough to make roads deadly, turning even the most experienced drivers into potential accident victims within minutes of stepping outside. 1/4 inch of ice is enough to snap power lines and bring down trees, creating widespread outages that can last for days or even weeks in rural areas. But 1/2 an inch of ice is catastrophic. We're talking about tens of thousands of homes potentially losing power in the middle of winter, with multiple Arctic blasts moving in behind this storm system. This is the kind of ice accumulation that shuts down entire regions, strands motorists for hours, overwhelms emergency services who can't respond safely to calls for help, and creates life-threatening conditions that test every aspect of our preparedness and community resilience. Stay with me, because what's developing right now represents a fundamental atmospheric change that's going to end the unseasonably warm December weather we've been experiencing and unleash sustained Arctic conditions that will dominate the weather across most of America for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Computer models have trended towards more snow and ice over the last 24 hours. And when multiple forecast systems from different countries start agreeing on a dangerous outcome, meteorologists pay very close attention because it indicates the atmospheric setup is becoming more organized and more dangerous. Today, Friday, December 26th, we have ice storm warnings in effect across western Pennsylvania, where up to 1/2 an inch of ice accumulation is possible. Winter storm watches expanding into New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, and throughout the Northeast. These are warnings you rarely see, and the National Weather Service doesn't issue them lightly. You don't see ice storm warnings unless meteorologists have really high confidence in catastrophic ice accumulation. And these warnings extend across areas where isolated to scattered power outages and major travel problems are not just possible, they're inevitable throughout the day and into the weekend. Over the next 24 hours, we're going to see these warnings potentially expand into additional states as this storm system continues to strengthen and organize, marking the beginning of what promises to be a very active winter period with multiple storms and sustained cold weather. This is real. This is happening right now as I'm speaking to you on this Friday morning after Christmas. and this is absolutely not a drill. Millions of Americans will be traveling directly into the path of this dangerous winter storm during the peak travel period when roads become most treacherous. Let me paint you a picture of what's happening at this very moment across the impact zone. Right now, freezing rain is currently falling across parts of Wisconsin and Michigan, and it's actually quite heavy at times, with ice accumulation already beginning to create problems for power companies. The heaviest freezing rain is concentrated in central Michigan near Flint and also outside of Detroit, where power companies are already reporting scattered outages as the ice begins to weigh down power lines and tree branches. And this is just the preview of what's coming for the Northeast. All the snow for the time being is well off to the north in Canada, but that's about to change dramatically as we go through this morning, because the snow shield is going to push south from Canada into the United States, bringing heavy snow to areas that will see the most significant accumulation. By noon today, moderate snowfall will start ramping up in Buffalo, New York, Syracuse, and across western New York, where travel conditions will deteriorate rapidly. And here's what makes this storm particularly dangerous compared to typical winter weather events. The timing couldn't be worse for millions of travelers. The atmospheric setup involves warmer air aloft pushing northward and creating a zone of freezing rain on the southern and western edges of the snow shield, which creates what meteorologists call a warm air override situation, where precipitation falls as snow in the cold air aloft, melts in the warm layer, then refreezes on contact with cold surfaces. Meanwhile, heavy snow develops across the interior Northeast, where several inches are likely, with localized higher totals where heavier bands set up. And we're looking at significant accumulation, especially across upstate New York and New England, where the heaviest snow bands are forecast to develop. This storm is happening the day after Christmas, when millions of Americans are traveling back home from holiday visits, creating a perfect storm of weather and human activity. And in my opinion, it would have been much better if this storm had happened yesterday on Christmas Day, when most people were safely at home with their families. But that's not what we got, and there are millions of people who will be traveling today directly into the path of this dangerous winter storm, with Interstate 95 from New York City through Boston seeing a transition from rain to heavy, wet snow, creating extremely dangerous driving conditions throughout the afternoon. Interstate 80 from New York City through northwestern New Jersey will experience heavy snow with 6 to 10 inches possible in many areas. Interstate 81 from Pennsylvania into upstate New York will get hit with a combination of ice and snow, creating treacherous conditions that will last for hours. Interstate 84 from Pennsylvania through Connecticut will experience the worst conditions with heavy snow, ice, and wind, creating whiteout conditions at times. And this is not theoretical weather discussion. These are specific highways where real people will encounter life-threatening conditions within the next few hours. Now let me show you specifically where this storm hits hardest so you understand the geographic scope of what we're dealing with. The heaviest ice accumulation zone extends across western Pennsylvania, where up to ½ inch is possible throughout today, including areas around Pittsburgh, Erie, and throughout the western half of Pennsylvania, where power outages are most likely. The heavy snow zone covers a massive area from western New York through all of New England, with the heaviest totals in the interior sections. New York City will see 6 to 10 inches, with the heaviest snow developing this afternoon and evening during the peak travel period. Boston will receive 8 to 12 inches with locally higher amounts, especially north and west of the city, where the heaviest bands develop. Hartford, Connecticut will be in the bullseye with 10 to 15 inches possible as this storm reaches peak intensity overhead. Albany, New York could see 12 to 18 inches with localized higher totals where the heaviest snow bands persist for hours. Burlington, Vermont faces 10 to 16 inches with dangerous wind creating blizzard conditions that will make travel nearly impossible. These are not just numbers on a map. These are accumulations that will completely shut down normal travel and commerce in affected areas. And let me give you the exact timeline so you know hour by hour when conditions deteriorate most rapidly across the impact zone. 10 a.m. Friday, freezing rain intensifies across Michigan and western Pennsylvania with power outages beginning. 12 p.m. Friday, snow develops across western New York and continues to spread eastward through central New York State, with travel becoming dangerous. 2 p.m. Friday, heavy snow reaches the Albany area and continues to intensify across upstate New York. 4 p.m. Friday, snow begins in New York City area and quickly transitions to heavy wet snow that will accumulate rapidly on all surfaces. 6 p.m. Friday, peak intensity develops across southern New England, with snowfall rates reaching 1 to 2 inches per hour in many areas. 8 p.m. Friday, blizzard conditions develop across interior New England, with winds gusting over 40 miles per hour, creating whiteout conditions. 10 p.m. Friday, storm begins to weaken, but dangerous travel conditions continue through the overnight hours across the region. Saturday morning, storm moves offshore, but Arctic air rushes in behind it, creating dangerously cold temperatures for the weekend and beyond. This timeline is critical because it shows you exactly when conditions become most dangerous in each area affected by this storm. And if you have travel plans today, please understand that this storm peaks during the afternoon and evening when millions will be on the roads. What makes this storm even more dangerous is what follows: an Arctic blast that will create sustained, dangerous cold for the next week. And after this storm moves offshore, temperatures will plummet 30 to 40 degrees below normal across the entire affected region. We're talking about daytime highs struggling to reach 10 degrees from New York through New England, with overnight lows dropping below zero, and wind chill values will drop to 20 to 30 degrees below zero, creating life-threatening conditions for anyone caught outside unprepared. This combination of heavy snow followed by Arctic cold creates a pattern that can literally freeze people and equipment solid, and power outages from ice damage become much more dangerous when temperatures drop this far below normal for extended periods. Homes without heat in sub-zero conditions can become uninhabitable within hours, creating emergency situations for thousands of families. And this Arctic blast isn't just a 1 or 2 day event. Computer models show sustained cold lasting well into the first week of January. We're looking at a fundamental pattern shift from the unseasonably warm December weather to sustained winter conditions, with the polar vortex strengthening and pushing Arctic air masses much further south than we've seen this winter. This pattern favors repeated winter storm development throughout the first half of January, with multiple snow and ice threats. And today's storm is just the beginning of what could be the most active winter weather period we've seen in years. Preliminary long-range forecasts suggest additional significant winter storms are likely next week and into early January, with the North Atlantic Oscillation trending negative, which typically brings more winter storms to the northeast United States. When you combine a negative NAO with a strengthening polar vortex, you get a pattern that favors repeated Arctic outbreaks and winter storms, which means today's storm is establishing a pattern that will likely persist for weeks, with multiple dangerous weather events. If you live in the Northeast, it's time to shift from holiday mode into sustained winter preparedness mode immediately. And let me tell you exactly what you need to do right now to protect yourself and your family from this storm and the pattern that follows. First, if you have any travel plans today, seriously consider postponing them until conditions improve tomorrow or Sunday, because the risk of becoming stranded on highways during peak storm intensity far outweighs the inconvenience of delaying travel. If you absolutely must travel today, leave early before conditions deteriorate and carry emergency supplies in your vehicle: blankets, water, non-perishable food, flashlight, first aid supplies, fully charged phone, and keep your gas tank full, because you might need to run your engine for heat if you become stranded. Tell someone your exact travel route and expected arrival time so they know where to look if you don't arrive safely. Check road conditions frequently, and be prepared to pull over and wait if visibility drops to dangerous levels. Second, prepare your home for extended power outages because ice accumulation will likely bring down power lines. Charge all electronic devices now while you still have power. Consider investing in portable battery banks and fill bathtubs and containers with water because electric pumps won't work during power outages. Stock up on non-perishable food and bottled water for at least 3 days because stores might be closed. Have multiple flashlights, batteries, and candles ready, but never leave candles unattended or use them near flammable materials. If you have a generator, make sure it's properly ventilated outside and never run it inside your home or garage. Test your generator now before the storm hits to ensure it works properly when you need it most, because carbon monoxide poisoning is the #1 killer during winter power outages. Third, prepare for extended cold weather because this Arctic blast will test your heating systems. Service your heating system now if possible. Have backup heating sources like space heaters or wood stoves ready, and insulate pipes that might freeze while knowing where your water shutoff valve is located in case pipes burst. Stock up on winter clothing, blankets, and sleeping bags because you might need multiple layers to stay warm. And if your power goes out, close off rooms you're not using to conserve body heat in smaller spaces. Fourth, check on elderly neighbors and vulnerable family members because they're most at risk during winter emergencies. Older adults lose body heat faster and may need help with snow removal, heating, or emergency supplies. Make sure they have adequate food, water, medications, and ways to stay warm if power goes out. And consider having vulnerable neighbors stay with family or friends who have more reliable heating during the coldest period. Fifth, prepare your property for heavy snow and ice loads that can damage roofs and bring down trees. Clear gutters and drains now so melting ice has somewhere to go when temperatures eventually rise. Trim tree branches that hang over power lines or your roof because ice can make them heavy enough to cause damage. Know where your circuit breakers and gas shutoffs are located in case you need to turn off utilities during emergencies. Have tarps and plywood available in case you need to cover broken windows or damaged roofs temporarily. Sixth, stay connected with reliable information sources and avoid social media rumors about weather conditions. Monitor National Weather Service updates, local emergency management, and trusted meteorologists for accurate information. Have a battery-powered weather radio so you can receive updates even if power and internet go out. Download weather apps on your phone that work offline. Save important phone numbers in case you lose internet access. And most importantly, trust official sources rather than unverified social media reports. What I'm about to tell you could literally save your life, so please pay close attention. Ice storms kill more people per hour than almost any other weather phenomenon. And most deaths are completely preventable through proper preparation and wise decision-making. The #1 cause of death during ice storms is carbon monoxide poisoning from improperly ventilated generators and heaters. So never run generators, grills, or camping stoves inside your home, garage, or any enclosed space because carbon monoxide is colorless and odorless, and it can kill you within minutes. Always place generators at least 20 feet from windows, doors, and vents, and point the exhaust away from your home. The second leading cause of death is hypothermia in homes that lose heat during extended power outages, and your body temperature can drop to dangerous levels much faster than you might think. Layer clothing, stay dry, and huddle together in the smallest room possible to conserve body heat. And if someone shows signs of confusion, shivering, or sluggish speech, these are early warning signs of hypothermia that require immediate action. The third major cause of injury and death is electrocution from downed power lines covered in ice and snow. Always assume any downed wire is energized and deadly. Stay at least 30 feet away from all downed lines. And ice can hide power lines, making them difficult to see. Call utility companies to report downed lines, but never attempt to move them or drive over them yourself. Falls on ice cause thousands of injuries during every major ice storm, and many of these accidents happen close to home on walkways, driveways, and steps. Wear shoes or boots with good traction, take small steps, hold handrails whenever possible, and salt walkways before the ice forms if possible, because removing ice later is much more difficult and dangerous. Vehicle accidents during ice storms often happen to experienced drivers who underestimate how slippery roads become. A thin layer of ice on pavement is nearly impossible to see, but can send vehicles sliding uncontrollably. So drive slowly, avoid sudden movements, and remember that bridges and overpasses freeze first and stay icy longest. Let me address something that many people don't fully understand about the relationship between ice storms and power outages. Half an inch of ice can add 500 pounds of weight to a single power line span, and that's more than most lines can handle. Power lines are designed to carry electrical current, not to support massive amounts of ice weight. And when ice accumulates to a quarter inch or more, power lines begin to sag and eventually snap under the weight, while tree branches, weighted down with ice, fall onto power lines, creating additional outages. Power companies often shut down electricity in areas where ice might cause lines to fail catastrophically, as a safety measure to protect repair crews. But this means some areas lose power before the storm even peaks. Power restoration after ice storms takes much longer than after typical thunderstorms, because repair crews cannot safely work on power lines covered in ice. So they must wait for melting or use special equipment. And some areas affected by significant ice accumulation might not see power restored for days or even weeks. This is why preparing for extended outages is absolutely critical when half an inch of ice is forecast. And rural areas typically take longer to restore because they have fewer customers per mile of power line, while utility companies prioritize repairs that restore power to the greatest number of customers first. Here's some perspective that might help you understand just how unusual and dangerous this storm really is. Ice storms with half an inch accumulation happen maybe once every 10 to 20 years in any given location. And the Great Ice Storm of 1998 in the Northeast caused $3 billion in damage and left some areas without power for weeks. That storm had ice accumulations very similar to what's forecast for western Pennsylvania today. And more than 4 million people lost power during the 1998 ice storm, while several dozen people died from storm-related causes. Today's storm has the potential to create similar conditions across a smaller geographic area. But the difference is that we now have better forecasting, better emergency management, and better communication systems. Though what we don't have is better power infrastructure. Ice still affects power lines exactly the same way it did in 1998. Trees still fall when weighted with ice, power lines still snap under the weight, and people still lose heat, because the physics of ice storms haven't changed, which is why these events remain so dangerous today. Speaking of community cooperation, let me share something that's really important during winter emergencies. Winter storms have a unique way of bringing out both the best and worst in people during crisis situations. And I've seen neighbors help each other through extended power outages by sharing generators, food, and warm shelter. The key is to balance self-reliance with community support, helping others while not creating additional problems. Check on elderly and disabled neighbors, but don't travel in dangerous conditions unless absolutely necessary. Share resources like food, water, and heat with families in need, but don't deplete your own emergency supplies. Help with snow and ice removal for those who can't do it themselves, but don't risk injury trying to help everyone. Communicate with neighbors about generator usage, water availability, and other critical resources. Work together to keep essential pathways clear and identify homes where people might need emergency assistance. Winter emergencies teach us that we're stronger together than we are alone, but individual preparation remains essential because you cannot help others if you haven't taken care of your own family's basic needs first. This storm will test our communities, but it's also an opportunity to build relationships that last beyond winter. The neighbors who help each other through this storm will be the same people who support each other year-round. Building these relationships before emergencies happen makes communities more resilient when disasters strike. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with some thoughts that go beyond just weather information and safety tips. Winter serves a purpose in God's creation as part of the natural cycle that sustains life. And storms like this one test our preparedness and resilience. While every challenge we face, including dangerous winter weather, has the potential to make us stronger and wiser. This storm will pass, but the lessons we learn and the preparations we make will serve us for years to come. And in difficult times, we discover what really matters: family, community, and our ability to care for each other. Material things can be replaced, but the safety and well-being of people we care about cannot. And in 2 Timothy 1:7, Paul writes that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and sound mind. I'm not trying to scare you with all this detailed information. I'm trying to equip you with the knowledge you need to stay safe, because fear paralyzes people and prevents good decision-making. But wisdom prepares us to face challenges with confidence and strength. You have power over your situation through proper preparation, and you have love that motivates you to protect your family. And community support is one of the beautiful things that emerges during winter storms as people help each other through difficulties. Winter storms have a unique way of bringing people together as we check on neighbors and share resources when power goes out. And there's something beautiful about how people help each other during emergencies. Something that reminds us we're meant to live in community. We're not meant to live isolated, independent lives, but to support each other through difficult and dangerous times like these. And this storm will challenge us, but it's also an opportunity to demonstrate love in action by helping those who need assistance. Maybe it's shoveling an elderly neighbor's driveway or sharing generator power with someone whose heat went out. Maybe it's providing warm shelter for someone whose home lost power, or sharing food when refrigerators stop working. These acts of kindness matter and build bonds that last long after the snow melts and normal life resumes. And they reflect the character of Christ while building relationships that strengthen our communities for whatever challenges may come. As we close, let me summarize the key points one more time, because this information is absolutely critical for your safety. Today, Friday, December 26th, a significant winter storm impacts the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, and Northeast with dangerous conditions. Ice storm warnings are in effect across western Pennsylvania, where up to half an inch of ice accumulation is possible. This storm peaks this afternoon and evening during the post-Christmas travel period, when millions will be on the roads. And after this storm passes, an Arctic blast arrives, bringing dangerous cold and additional snow threats throughout next week. More significant winter weather is likely this weekend, next week, and into early January as an active pattern becomes established. So prepare your home for power outages, prepare your vehicle for emergencies, and prepare your family for extended cold weather. Adjust travel plans if possible, check on vulnerable neighbors, store water and supplies, and have backup heating plans ready. And through it all, remember that you have the power to control your response to this storm through proper preparation and wise decisions. Winter serves a purpose in the natural cycle as it tests us, teaches us, and shapes us into stronger, more resilient people. But winter also brings out the best in human nature when we help each other through challenges and demonstrate love through action. Face this storm with wisdom and preparation. Help your neighbors whenever possible, and share your resources generously with those in need, knowing that every storm eventually passes. But the bonds we build helping each other will last much longer than the cold weather. Stay safe out there. Watch the forecast carefully and make good decisions based on facts rather than wishful thinking, remembering that preparation today prevents tragedy tomorrow, and wise planning now protects your family throughout this winter. Keep monitoring conditions as this storm develops and the Arctic pattern that follows, because weather never stops changing, and neither should our vigilance in staying prepared for whatever challenges winter throws at us in the weeks ahead. This is just the beginning of what promises to be a very active winter period with multiple storms and sustained cold weather. So use today's storm to practice your emergency procedures, test your backup systems, and strengthen your community connections. Because winter is far from over, more challenges are definitely coming, and preparation now will pay dividends later. So stay informed through reliable weather sources, stay prepared with adequate supplies, and stay connected to your community. Together, we'll weather this storm and every challenge that winter brings our way over the next several weeks and months. So keep the faith, keep helping each other, And keep watching for updates as this dangerous winter pattern continues to evolve. Remember that God is with you. He walks with you through every storm. He provides strength for every challenge. And as Scripture reminds us, He has equipped us with power, love, and sound mind to face whatever comes our way. Face this winter with wisdom and faith. Prepare practically while trusting spiritually. And know that spring will come, the cold will break, the snow will melt, and life will renew. But for now, winter is here. Respect its power. Prepare for its challenges, and trust that you have what you need to get through it. Stay strong, stay prepared, stay safe, and stay connected to your community, because weather never stops, and neither do we. God bless you and keep you safe through these storms.